Good evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you find it most convenient to listen to the Bonfire. I, as always, am Alan, the Poe with a goal. And that goal is to... I need to get out of school. Graduate. 3 more weeks. I'm as always joined by my lovely co-hosts, DJ.
I dropped out of school. I don't have to worry about that.
Good on ya, as well as Tim.
I've got multiple degrees that I don't even really use, so here we are.
Wait, what degrees do you have again?
I've got a bachelor's in political science and French literature and a master's in international relations.
Ah, neato. That's cool. Well, I mean, once
Is it though? Is it really?
I mean, I'm just being nice. And yeah, I'm in 3 weeks' time. I'm going to have actually not even 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It's June. Yay. Summer's almost here. In 2 weeks' time is when I walk the stage, hopefully. So
nothing
yeah.
like having being on a podcast where the people on it don't know what date it is when they're recording.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. It all depends on our MVP Austin and his turnaround. I mean, the last episode he turned it on quite quickly because I think we recorded it like in the evening and it was up the next morning. So.
But either way, if this is coming out in June, we're very off.
Oh yeah, no, then we're very off. But either way, if you at home, give a round of applause to our amazing producer, Austin, and even if you're driving, just let go of the wheel. Quick round of applause. All right, we don't really have much.
Are you about
news.
to say that I was the producer?
I low-key almost did. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's not DJ, it's Austin. We love you, Austin. So. There's not really much news, especially fire related. There's some kind of connected, one being CONCACAF. The CONCACAF Champions Cup final happened for us yesterday. And
Saturday, June 1st, right around the same time the fire was happening. The fire match was happening.
Yes, June 1st. And it did not go well for the Columbus crew. They unfortunately, unfortunately, depends on what stands you look at. From the Columbus, they lost, but from the, represent MLS, they unfortunately lost. So it was a 3-0 defeat. They lost.
Yeah. Wilfred Nancy, making it clear that he wasn't making excuses, talked about the fact that somehow half the team had diarrhea during the match, which I can't imagine playing a soccer game at a professional level or any other level with diarrhea.
Is this CONCACAF lasagna gate?
Whatever. Well, what's sort of funny is apparently the players, unlike a lot of teams, heavily restrict players on travel. So it's like, some go as far as to like having team meals and stuff like that. So this is the food you're eating. And like, you're in bed at this time and like we're locking the door in your hotel room. And apparently Wilfred Nancy and the crew didn't have any restrictions. A lot of people had a family come down, which makes sense because it's a cup final. So people were there with like partners, spouses, parents, kids, whoever. And there weren't a lot of restrictions around it. I guess the downside of that is that you don't really have any idea where people are eating or what they're drinking and all that kind of stuff. Before the match.
And especially in other countries, you have to always watch out with food stuffs because you never know. Your body isn't just, I guess, adjusted to whatever bacteria and other food stuffs are across.
Especially when you're like the only professional athletes that people don't know in Pachuca. Like it's only 50 miles from Mexico City, but we're not talking about a very big town. So it's like, oh, you're the soccer team that's coming to town to play us. Huh. Well, let me just not cook that food for you.
Let me just cut the timer down by a few minutes. Or something.
Hope you
like
like really, 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 really rare steak.
Yeah.
Here's a rare steak. Just walked off the field.
But that is funny. Well, I mean, I get. Well, you'd think that the crew would be a team that would, very much control this. I mean, beforehand they showed how the team was practicing. To adjust to the altitude because Pachuca is like, I think 800 feet above sea level in comparison.
Closer to 8,000. Yeah, it's 8,000 feet above. Yeah.
Oh my days, I missed a zero. Yeah, no, super high up in comparison to the low Midwest of Columbus. So I thought, if they were going that far in terms of like sleeping in altitude tents, you'd think. Alas. But yeah. On the other side of the pond, for our sister club of Lugano, they were in the Swiss Cup final recently. Unfortunately, they ended up losing that. It finished 0-0. It went to PKs. Both Fire formers of Aliseda and Doumbia have scored their penalties. I don't think Kacper Przybyłko was in that game, and not even on the bench, so he just wasn't there.
I believe he's injured.
Oh, So it went to the 12th round, all the way to the 12th round before they bowed out. So, our condolences to our friends over in Lugano. But I mean, hey, making it to a cup final is still in and of itself kind of neat.
Yeah, I had it 9-8, but that's still a lot of people taking PKs. Didn't quite get to the goalies, which I just think goalies should have to go in the first 5. I just think that should be a rule because that makes it more fun. But
I mean, rules are rules, so it is what it is. So no, yeah, condolences to Lugano. From what we heard, Mansueto wasn't present at that game. He was at the Fire games, and Tim, you were mentioning that the amount of money that Mansueto spent on Lugano was about the amount that we spent in the last summer transfer or something or the last off-season window. So
yeah, European clubs don't hold value the way that North American teams do. So I think that was a big factor. But I don't think it's really the money per se. I think it's just that right now Chicago is the place that needs the attention.
That is true. Yeah, we do need attention. I mean, so yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, but nonetheless, our condolences. But keep your head up. Keep your heads held up
they're
high.
still in Champions League qualifiers for next year. So it's not like everything is lost.
True.
So, which is ridiculous to say that Kacper Przybyłko, Nacho Aliseda. I mean, I think Justin Reynolds' loan expires before then, but potentially Justin Reynolds, John Espinoza are going to be in the Champions League next year.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know how many games or who they have to face beforehand to make it. I mean, it's possible. It's entirely possible. So who knows? All righty dighty. I think it's time to talk about the big thing, the big womp that has happened for the Galaxy. So Fire win. It happened finally. The Fire broke their 9-game winless streak, beating the LA Galaxy 2-1 at home. I don't remember what your guys' goal predictions were. I think
4-0.
You said 4-0. I think Tim, you said 3-1 Galaxy. I think Eli also said 3-1 Galaxy. I was being optimistic and saying 1-1. In the idea that they were gonna continue improving but not yet be there. And I think it was very very close, but the soccer gods were very merciful, and they were like, you know what, I think Chicago needs this one. I already sent Eli after the game when I was leaving Soldier Field, I was like, buddy, I love you, man. So, but no, yeah, Fire win. The start of the game wasn't looking like that was going to happen. Literally in the 5th, 6th minute, very early on, all of a sudden the referee blows the play dead. I see him walking over to the VAR screen, and the jumbotrons at Soldier Field were saying possible handball. I was like, where did that happen? They ended up showing, I think, a replay afterwards. And this is also the first time we saw one of the new refereeing rules that was added once the referee lockout was over, which is where the referee announces to the stadium what he saw and what the decision is, sort of like in the NFL or in the NHL, and previously tested, I think, at the Women's World Cup. So it ended up being that it bumped, the ball was, I think it was bumped into Rafa Schihos's, I can't remember which arm, if it was his right or
it was his left arm. So it was the fourth. It was the fourth. Well, actually, just early in the 5th minute of play, he had the ball. It's off a LA corner. There's an in-swinging ball. The ball goes up in the air. Off an LA player. Rafa Chihos has his back to the ball, so he's facing the goal line. He sticks both of his arms straight up as if he's like, I don't know, trying to say pick me very energetically when he jumped, which is, I think, what led to the whole situation, because that puts his arms in an unnatural position when he's coming on his way down, and his left arm is at almost a 90-degree angle.
Yeah, it's almost as if he was trying to do like a Superman leap, like with both of his hands in the air, and the ball was headed by which Galaxy player is this? Sorry, I don't have their names and numbers memorized. Yoshida, the captain, he heads it at right when Chihos's his arms are falling, and they called. All the Galaxy players were raising their hand and yelling for a penalty. The play goes on until a few minutes later, referee ends up calling the pen. And that's when Rishi Puig steps up to the spot, kicks the ball to the left. Chris Brady was very close. He dove in the right direction. He was off by a few inches, but unfortunately it was a very early Galaxy lead, which, I think for a lot of people in the stadium just set the tone for continued misery, because it was raining. The Fire were losing early on for a really unfortunate reason.
Yeah, and it just seemed like we've been there before, right? Like that's something that we've seen from the team, conceding an early goal. I mean, against Orlando, it was a yakety sax level stupid mistake that happened in the 4th minute. This is a handball that happened in the 5th minute, but like the penalty doesn't happen until a couple minutes later because of the VAR review. But it was still like one of those, like, however you thought things started before the match had time to settle into anything, it becomes the Fire are in a hole.
Yeah, Ricky Puig, he ended up. I didn't see this originally until I saw the replay and the highlights. He took the corner flag and he started like air guitaring it. And that just set the precedent for the rest of the game for him, as every single time the man touched the ball, boos rang across Soldier Field. Like it was loud. It was very loud booing from everyone at Soldier Field, apart from maybe the Galaxy supporters, which I do want to point out, as Eli mentioned in the last episode, there were going to be a decent amount of Galaxy supporters traveling, and it was a fairly decent amount. It probably wasn't the same amount as like the St. Louis supporters when we first played them, or second played them at Soldier Field. I think they had a bit more, but
I thought
still,
they just had like 12 people. I don't think there was a big crew. I mean, some teams travel well. I want to say that the Galaxy, especially considering it's halfway across the country, I think that it's the most that you'll see traveling.
I mean, that makes sense considering that St. Louis is like now technically the closest away game for us, even though they're not in the same conference.
No, I'm saying like I think the Galaxy traveled really well. I think that St. Louis did better this year. I think that last year, I really remember that being a very empty section.
Okay. Nonetheless, so, good on the Galaxy supporters, I guess, traveling, like you mentioned, halfway across the country. I think the Fire have something in them that I don't know why they need to go down a goal, but all of a sudden in the last few games, they're like, okay, we'll score somehow. And that ended up happening in the 32nd minute. There was sort of a, how do I explain this? So Brian Gutierrez, he ends up getting the ball. He passes it forward, or more of like a lateral pass to Marin Haile Selassie. It sort of bumps between two different Galaxy players before landing in front of Hugo Kuipers. He's just there. The Galaxy players just turn around and it's just him and the ball. And he just slides, of course, because it was raining, so the grass was wet. He slides. Keeper dives the wrong direction. 1-1.
Yeah. And I think that the pass wasn't weighted the way that Guti wanted it to be to Marin Haile Selassie. Marin gets a toe on it. It's clearly not what he wanted to do. Like, I'm not sure if he was trying to pass the ball deeper into the box or if it was just he was thinking about taking a shot away, but whatever happened is not what Marin wanted to happen. And I think the pitch conditions were a big factor in that.
Yeah.
But it worked out in the end, right? And like, this is exactly why you get a striker for, $12 million from a top outside of like the top 5 league in Europe, right? Because they know when to go into the box and they know how to make contact with the ball in the box in a dangerous way once that happens.
It's all
that's
about
what Hugo
positioning.
Kuipers did. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the replay, I think what Marin Haile Selassie was trying to do was almost do like a through ball to Alan Aragoni, who's on the right, clearly open. But I mean, hey, it just worked out that it ping-ponged between 3 different Galaxy players to right in front of Hugo Kuipers. And like you mentioned, it can be messy. It can be a bit... it's not as yakety-sax as it was for Orlando, but still, the point stands, the goal stands, and it was 1-1. And it really turned the tides on this game. And I've noticed that especially in the Orlando game, where when we scored our 1 goal, the Fire were pedal to metal. And there were moments where the Galaxy were also, they had possession. They very much fancied having possession. I think they ended up having 64% possession. And they were doing almost what the Fire would do, which is keep possession and sort of just pass it around and like sort of schmancy their way into the final third, but like nothing ever came from it. Like apart from the penalty, Pug was very much kept down, silenced. Well, not by the crowd, but by the on-field players.
So I think that that's part of the Galaxy's model, though, and we can talk about that, in a minute. But I think that the Fire did a good job of using the Galaxy's game plan against them because the Galaxy want possession, and the Fire were willing to give them possession as long as it was on the terms the Fire were willing to give it to them.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, and in doing so, and especially a lot of people, and I think a lot of people, including ourselves, agree with Shaqiri's departure back to the Swiss national team and Brian Gutierrez playing that sort of number 10 role. He was a lot more free just to take control, essentially, of that midfield, which is what led to the second Fire goal when a Galaxy player tried to make a pass forward. Guti was there, immediately went backwards. He had Marin Haile Selassie to his right. He had Hugo Kuipers making a run to his left. He could have done what a lot of Fire plays end up happening, which is it goes to the left, to the right, and then some sort of cross in. He said, nah, I'm going to take it myself. Takes the shot. It goes off the post. And unlike Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final, it actually goes into the back of the net.
Yeah, it was a fantastic strike from distance. I mean, it was... I don't know how many. I want to say it was probably like 35 yards out.
It was like around the outside little half circle from the penalty box.
Yeah.
So that would be about 22 yards.
I want to say it was farther out than that, but that may just be my recollection.
It was still from distance, which
it was from distance. It wasn't a close-in shot.
We don't see that often, honestly. A lot of the goals that we see are very much from close range. So the fact Brian...
They are crappy oops that went in goals.
But the fact that it went in, and this is where I sort of said in the beginning of the preview that it very much went the way I thought it was, but the soccer gods have tipped it in our favor because this was technically a double doink, but it actually went in. And I think the Fire social media made a post about that goal and said finally a double doink that went good for Chicago or something like that, which I was like, wow. They said it, but I mean, they're right, I guess. So yeah, no. And onward from that point of the game, the Galaxy, like I mentioned, they were very much in possession, but they were just shut down. Like nothing really came from that apart from a save from Guti way later on near the end of the game where he made essentially a double stop. And fairly enough, everyone in the crowd started chanting his name.
Yeah, it was another strong performance from Brady. And he had to be sharp a number of other times. Like, not like, as weird as it sounds to talk about, like, not only shots on target are dangerous because you have to be active in the goal, and you have to make sure that like balls that are coming into the area do not become, dangerous possession for players on the other side. And I mean, the Galaxy had 14 shots in total. Like, there were a number of times that they tested Brady, and some of them, like, it's not like they all just like sailed like wide and like it was a goal kick after that. Like, he needed to be active.
True. He did have 3 saves to his name at the end. So he was very much active. But I mean, that's not an unknown. We know that Chris Brady steps up, and he knows that we appreciate him, honestly. So good on him. He knew what he was doing as well with his saves. He very much was smart with both how he saved and how he just played the ball, especially once we were nearing the end of the game. And in terms of like time management, the thing that the losing team really hates when a goalkeeper really takes their time with the ball, he knew how to do that.
Yeah.
All right. There's one other thing I personally, and I know a lot of people are going to want to talk about. 76th minute is when we saw a particular substitution we've been waiting to see, and that is Marin Haile Selassie coming out for Georgios Koutsias. Now, why is this important? Now, those who are on social media know already, because Koutsias came on with his shirt tucked in. When he first started playing for the club, we all noticed that he was playing with the shirt tucked in. People were like, okay, you do your thing. And then he started playing without his shirt tucked in. And shout out Anthony _CF97, also known as Koutsias' #1 fan on Twitter, where they made a post talking about Koutsias and his untucked shirt, giving us the whole statistic, the whole 9 yards, the full hog plus the postage of how the Fire play better when he has his shirt tucked in. What ended up happening after that was it was shared a few times on Twitter, ended up getting to one of our producers, John, who helps make hot takes. He sent the message, he sent like this tweet to Kellen Acosta on Instagram, to which Kellen Acosta sends a saluting emoji and saying, I'm on it. So he comes out, he plays the remainder of the time with his shirt tucked in, and our own Alex Calabrese ended up having an interview with him post-match, and he asks him, how did that come about? And he did, and Koutsias does confirm that Kellen Acosta told him that if he plays with his shirt tucked in, we'll win. So he did so, and we did win. So, just shout out John, shout out Anthony
_CF97.
CF97, Koutsias' #1 fan. And also shout out, this is honestly just a shout out to the Fire faithful and Fire community. The fact that we have this much of an impact for a club, which is one of the reasons why I love supporting, like, especially like a more local team and like, one I'm from. This was just a really cool moment. And they ended up putting on social media as well. From my understanding, Anthony _CF97 is getting free tickets as well as shirts. And apparently they said that they're going to make merch that says tuck in your freaking shirt. So I want
that shirt.
That is just incredible, honestly, just from everyone, from the Fire community, I'm shouting out so many times, but this is just incredible, especially Kellen Acosta getting the message and saying, I'm on my way.
Yeah, it was a great experience, just really cool. Like top to bottom, and like the fact that it all just like happened in the course of, really, it was all a match day thing, which is what's even crazier about it. I'm waiting to see how many shirts are tucked for the Fire's next match.
I'm waiting to see as well. Yeah.
Just imagine Kellen Acosta running around the locker room, slapping everyone, going, okay, tuck it in, tuck it in, tuck it in.
Yeah. So, according to the admin, they did say that the merch is going to happen for the July 3rd game. So, in about a month's time, that will be, hopefully, if they keep their promise, that will be available to purchase at that game. So, I mean, I would definitely get one. Just for the whole saga of it. So Yeah, we were hoping to get John on this episode so that he himself, as someone who is a part of this saga, but he has other plans right now. Really cool ones. One that involves proposing. So,
and
good
he
on
did
him.
propose, and she said yes. So we have an
She
update on that.
said yes.
She said
Let's
yes. Yes, John is now
go.
engaged.
Wow. Let's go. Add applause right here, Austin. Applause for our man John. So, all right. And overall, this was plus the win, even though it was raining. Now, I'm someone that absolutely loves to voice my displeasure of going to rain games. This was now my second rain game, the first one being one of the Open Cup games for Fire 2. It was a really fun game, and a lot of people showed up. The reported attendance was around 25K, which for a rain game is really good.
Don't remind me about the rain game for Fire 2.
Oh yeah, you were there.
Calling it a rain game is nice. Like, it started to snow.
That is true.
It literally was snowing. You could see in the lights. Oh, there's snow. Oh, nope, it's not.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. People just dressed appropriately. They wore ponchos. I wore a raincoat, hat. I even wore waterproof shoes and everything like that. It wasn't until the very end where I was feeling moist. I know people hate that word, but like I was feeling it. I don't know whether it was because I was just sweating or whether I was actually getting soaked from the rain, but either way, I was just blasting my saxophone at the end of the game there. We were playing, we were having fun, honestly. And we even managed to get a decent amount of like the whole supporter section to play together, as well as all the the non-supporter affiliated people, the people that are there either for cheaper tickets or for whatever reason. It was very cool, even with the rain. And of course, shout out mentioning Delana, fellow barn burner who had the pleasure of 2 axes, not 1, but 2 for the sound the alarm thing. She was able to run down the stairs to pass it to the 2 people who were doing the sound the alarm. Really cool experience.
Yeah. And it was Pepe Pena and Art Johnson, who have owned Sidetrack Chicago for like 50 years and have been like staples in the gay rights movement in Chicago for basically that whole time.
Yeah. It was, good times. Good times. All right. I mean, anything else to mention of the game?
Well,
that was the Fire's first win against the LA Galaxy in 14 years.
Yes, you mentioned that. I remember you tweeting that out. 14 years it took to beat the Galaxy. Wow.
That is...
Wait, what was the one 14 years ago?
What was that?
What was the one 14 years ago?
3-2 win actually in LA.
In LA.
That is actually...
In 2010?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that was under... that was during a weird period. That was when the Fire were starting to go downhill.
Yeah.
And it was like they would have these random wins that kept the hope up. And
so the last win in Chicago was 2006.
Yep. I think so. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm not saying anything, but 2006 was also the last year that the Fire won a trophy. So,
ooh,
just putting that out there.
That is true.
I mean, I think though that like in the end, the Fire are still in 14th place in the Eastern Conference.
Yes.
They've got 15 points now. So at exactly the halfway point of the season, that puts them on track for 30, which I don't think is wooden spoon territory, but if you fall off a little bit from that level, that is wooden spoon territory. Now
it's
there
not
are
what we're aiming for, period.
I mean, there's teams that are like trying to like that have hit rock bottom that are very much digging this season, like the Revolution, where they won on Saturday, so they're now up to 10 points, so they're closing in a little bit on the Fire. They've got multiple games in hand. Sporting Kansas City is at the bottom of the Western Conference. They look like they're very much trying to like dig below rock bottom. You know, and so the Fire really it's still a difficult place for the Fire to be in. Just in terms of like where they are in the standings.
Yeah.
Like if different people draw the playoff line at different places. Andrew Wiebe from Extra Time has a spreadsheet that you can find that he's published that basically tracks what teams would need to do to get to a 45-point season, which is, I think, the like highest safe level line to make it into the play-in spots that I've seen. I use 44 points because I think that that's probably enough. Right now, the pace is currently about 41 points. But, you know, if you use my line, like the 44 points, that means the Fire needs to get, an additional 29 points in 17 games after getting 15 points in the first 17, right? Like, so that's a very significant uptake in the pace. Like, that's almost Supporter Shield level. It's like second place in the conference level performance from here on out. And that math hasn't really changed for the Fire.
One thing I'll say, because, we won, but we don't want to get in that cycle that a lot of MLS Redditors will always talk about, that we are in a down spot and then we do okay and then we're like just okay and then we fall back down. This needs to be sustainable, as you mentioned, Tim. This has to be like these baby steps have to now become strides. And if we do want to make something out of this season, because a lot of people have already written us off, and for rightfully so, because it hasn't looked like a team that can make the playoffs. But if maybe something were to happen, or at least some sort of push, those steps have to become strides. And I feel like over the last few games, those steps have been sort of, getting there slowly. Now, for some reason, it's a cold start, especially when you look at the game, both this game and the last game against Orlando, with how early we conceded. Cold starts. But maybe different factors such as the change in formation, whether it's putting Guti as that sort of number 10 or having Marin Haile Selassie up front, like these maybe Klopas has found something that is going to push us forward, and maybe not propel forward as it would be needed.
So let's talk about that. So what do we think about the formation change and like what it's done for the Fire? Because they now have played either 3 or 5, 3 center backs, however you want to put the formation, of 5, 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it. For the past 3 matches, they are undefeated in the past 3 matches. So you kind of slid from being winless in 9 games to now being undefeated in 3 as a continuation of that winless streak as soon as you had the win in, right? And that winless streak the undefeated streak has happened with playing 5 in the back.
Personally, one thing it does do is sacrifice possession. One thing I've noticed is that, especially in the Galaxy game, possession goes down, which I guess for some people can pose a little bit of anxiety, especially for me, just seeing the constant attack, or maybe not attack, but press from the other team. But it works, because when the Fire have possession, and especially in the last few games, I've noticed it as the other team being like, we can give them possession because they'll figure out a way to shoot themselves in the foot. Because you'll see them like passing it in the back between each other to the wing and to make an attempted cross, or it just goes all the way around, keeper catches it, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, even if the goals aren't the prettiest, like the Kuiper's goal or even Guti's goal, even if they're not the prettiest, it just works because it's on the bounce. It's unsuspected. Like, no one knew that all of a sudden the ball just ping-ponged a little bit around the Galaxy players, turn around, there's Kuipers. No one knew that Guti was going to take a shot off and it was going to go in. So I like I said, maybe Klopas has figured out a position for the players, or at least formation-wise. And maybe that also includes Shaq not being a part of the plan, ?
Yeah, and I think that's something else. I was initially suspicious of playing 3 center backs, because I think that essentially what you're doing is you're taking off, like you pointed out, Alan, like an attacking player for another center back.
Mm-hmm.
The team has talked about wanting to play a possession-oriented system and building through the midfield. as you pointed out, like that's not what's happened. And I'm not really sure that they've been able to do that successfully. So maybe it's a realization of here's where we are.
Mhm.
I think that the most recent win, frankly, one thing that we haven't shouted out is that they did it without Andrew Gutman, who had really looked like one of the Fire's best players for the past few matches before going down with an injury.
Oh yeah.
I thought Jonathan Dean did okay, playing on the left side again, keeping Aragoni on his natural right side. I think Aragoni does better on the left, and Dean looks a lot better on the right, but Dean has slowly been growing into being okay on the left, but it's certainly a very major downgrade. Just like, no offense to Dean or his match, like what he brings to the game, but like he just isn't Andrew Gutman, who is one of the better left wing backs in the league. And Dean's defense has been good. Like his speed is there, his determination is there. He can come back and win balls that you don't think he can win, but he just doesn't have that ability to set the tempo on offense that we saw Andrew Gutman do a couple of matches ago. So the fact that like this is what was happening even when a lot of the roster pieces weren't there, I think is encouraging.
Mhm.
Push come to shove though, I just don't think that this is like it. I don't think that the Fire will sustainably get enough wins over the course of the season for it to ultimately make a difference. Because like realistically, like they could maybe go like, I don't know, 8 wins and 7 draws and only lose 2 matches for the rest of the season and make the playoffs. But like, do we really think the Fire are going to lose 2 matches for the rest of the season? Like that doesn't sound like a realistic option here,
Yeah. But I mean, it's, I guess, in one way of saying refreshing, seeing something different.
Yeah, and it's worked, right? Like, and it's been working, and I think that like possession-based systems can work and be successful, and frankly, frequently are a lot easier to watch or like more entertaining to watch. But just working without the ball, it can sometimes work wonders because you're simplifying the game. And I think that's maybe what we're seeing a little bit of is like simplifying the game, making it easier. And I think that like there's like a boost in confidence. Like the last time that we got a chance to talk to Frank before a match was not this week because of the 2 matches, but last week. And he talked about players playing with confidence. When he was asked about Kellen Acosta giving him the armband, he mentioned not for this match, but previously, about it giving confidence to Kellen Acosta. And I think now with the play that the team has had, with Acosta getting a goal in that match, with Kuipers getting goals, he's now on track for 10 on the season, which would be the first Fire player to get double-digit goals since Robert Barrich in 2020. Yeah. Now, like, it's 10 goals, right? Like, you're not paying $12 million for a guy to get 10 goals, but it's still, I mean, he's scoring. Like, he is now officially scoring.
He's making goal contributions as well.
And goal contributions, right. So I think that psychologically, going into this break, Hugo Kuipers is in a radically different world than we thought he would be in 2 weeks before.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And Brian Gutierrez, I think, as well, after being left off of the Olympic squad, he didn't talk about this, but it seems like maybe that gave him a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and rather than letting that chip weigh him down, he's been using it to power his performances. And Marko Mitrovic, the U.S. Olympic coach, has said that just because you aren't included in this June roster doesn't mean that you're not going to be considered for the actual Olympic roster. And I think that he's possibly doing what he can to make his case to get on that Olympic roster with play like this, because assisting on a goal, scoring a goal from distance like that, he scored a goal, scores a goal. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it was a very low percentage shot. Like it wasn't a beautiful play. Like it wasn't intricate with a buildup. He did a lot of the work to make it happen. He did a lot of work to make both the goals happen. And he just took a shot. He thought it could get in from distance. Like it didn't look like a dangerous shot until it went in,
Yeah, no, I thought it was just going to hit the post and go out. Next thing I know, it goes boonk, boonk, and it trickles over the line because it was in the opposite side of the stadium. I turned around to check on the Jumbotron. Next thing I know, I hear jumping and screaming, and I was like, okay. Blah.
Yeah. No, I mean, goal scores goal. So, like,
Amen.
But you mentioned Shaqiri, Alan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people have commented about who should be in the number 10 position, sort of between Guti and Shaq. And one of the things we always mention about Shaq is that he doesn't run. We know that maybe he does care, because some people say that he doesn't care. And we can definitely say, you especially, Tim, you can say that he does care and that he shows that he does care about. But in terms of especially the strategy that Frank Klopas is running with right now, sort of that 3-5-2, and rather instead of having possession, it's more grab and run, essentially, I feel like Guti will thrive in that position, because I feel like as of recent, he's sort of been kept down because of it. And I feel that in Shaqiri's absence and Guti filling in that spot, he's blossomed again, essentially.
So yeah, I think there's two separate points that are worth talking about there. One of which is Guti's use in the formation that the team is playing, because playing out of like a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2, like there isn't necessarily like you don't need a number 10 the way that you do it a 4-2-3-1. And in practice, what that's because like you've got Kellen Acosta playing sort of like the center midfielder in what's not entirely like an attacking midfield trio, but they're ahead of like the 5 guys in the back, so like they all have more offensive responsibilities than you do in like a double pivot. And what we saw was Guti going wide for some of the attacks, as if he was sort of like a winger, and he was positioned on the right side in the formation. And you saw him distributing for some of the plays as well. And I think that suited him. I think it also helped. Something that I don't think we've really talked about is Marin Haile Selassie being the quote unquote second striker next to Hugo Kuipers, as opposed to it had been Tom Barlow in the previous couple matches. Marin isn't a natural striker, but I think that what this formation does with Guti essentially like behind him and also on the right is it allows for some good combination play between the two. It allows for them to get on goal in the right situations, and both can distribute the ball. We saw some really dangerous passes into the box from Marin at a couple of different points in the match. And that's something that Barlow wasn't really giving as much.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was one of the things that made this work. So I guess the answer was like after multiple years of, we need Guti playing the 10, all of a sudden the team starts playing a formation that doesn't have a 10, and Guti starts doing better, right? So that's one way to solve the problem.
In the way I say 10, it's more of that, I guess, in a sense of more central position, but in this configuration, as you mentioned, it almost gives him more space, more playroom.
Yeah, and I mean, and like honestly, like I don't want to get like that's the thing. Like to some extent, I don't think it makes too much sense to get hooked up on formations, because there's you can like the way that people are lined up in a formation when you like make it on a diagram isn't necessarily the way that people are playing. That people actually are playing on a pitch. I think what hurt the Fire for a long time was that when Shaqiri was placed in that central role, he didn't do the logical thing that I hoped that they would do. We saw it a couple of matches, but not really more than that, where Shaqiri may have been the 10 and Guti may have been on the wing, but what happens is Shaqiri is allowed to roam wide, and then Guti knows to shift centrally, and it's sort of like pre-planned in part of it, because again, like the way you line up in a formation isn't the way that you have to actually play. We didn't see it enough in the Fire. And the second question that you brought up is like whether or not basically Shaqiri should be coming back or is coming back. And I think that at this point, I mean, Frank Klopas has not, he said it diplomatically as opposed to directly, but essentially it's a natural time for Shaqiri to be thinking about his future and to find the move for his future. So I think it would really suit everyone if he had a very strong Euros and was able to use that to get a move to somewhere else. You know, obviously
closer to home.
Yeah, so closer to home is a possibility. There's I mean, obviously one possibility would be for him to go to Lugano. The team would have to use the buyout for that to happen. He would be treated like a hero as soon as he arrives in Switzerland. Like, he's a huge name in the country. I think the team would prefer to not have to use that buyout. And so, with players of his age, and especially just like given his profile and the fact that he's Muslim, Saudi Arabia is an option that I think that is, actively sort of being explored. But again, like, a strong Euros from Shaqiri really would help everyone's case with that. If he has an anonymous Euros or Switzerland bombs out early, which I think they've got a good chance of making it out of the group stage, then, if they were to like exit in the group stage quietly without a lot of, highlight reel things, because that's the thing that everyone knew about Shaqiri. Like, I think that Fire fans knew about Shaqiri before he came here. It's like, tournament Shaqiri's playing in, you're going to see you're going to wake up one morning and like there's going to be highlights of something Shaqiri did from that tournament for at least one day, right? Like, that's what we know him for.
I mean, heck, he's in like the intro for Euro 24, specifically the bicycle kick he did against Poland in Euro 2016. So you're definitely going to see something.
Yeah, that hat trick in a World Cup match, like he's a tournament player. But again, so we'll have to see. But I think that everyone's looking to move on. The timing, obviously, he can depart as soon as the window opens, which lines up with when basically that would happen like right after the Euros are done. Before the Euros are done, but if like an early round knockout exit for Switzerland would line up with that.
Yeah.
Whether that happens or not, I think there's a lot of moving pieces there.
Righty. So, we don't really have to do a preview considering, like we just mentioned, the international break. So, the Fire don't suit up until next Saturday, where they will be playing against Canadian side Toronto FC.
What do we say next Saturday? We mean the Saturday after next, June 15th.
Yes, June 15th, because time is irrelevant when it comes to podcast recordings. June 15th is when the next time the Fire will be suiting up, so we do have a bit of an international break right now. I guess the only Fire players to, notice, as we mentioned, Shaqiri for Switzerland in the European Championships. We also mentioned last episode, Sergio Auriel is with the U19s, so that's another thing. There's not really much Fire player action apart from that.
Yeah. Which again, like, I think the hope is for some players like Guti that like they can parlay performance like this to getting considered for tournaments a little bit later in the summer, including the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. But it's pretty much it from us, I guess. Not much really to mention, other than in the LA game that the ref was and also missed a handball at the end from the Galaxy keeper.
It's Marcos de Oliveira again. What do you expect?
Oh, it was him? I didn't even notice. Oh, my days. Okay, that explains everything.
That's the one thing I was just thinking of that. I was like, we forgot to mention, this is the same ref from the Open Cup game last year.
It was him. So, okay, that makes sense. So, he missed a call for us in that game, but he gives them... Okay. All right. I see how it is. That clears everything up for me.
So, one other thing that I think is maybe worth mentioning as we're talking about referees, after the match, there was a Special Olympics match between the Chicago Fire Unified Team, which is a men's and women's combination team, and the LA Galaxy Unified Team. The match, when the team announces them, by the way, I recommend staying if you're able to at Soldier Field. You basically get to avoid the crowds coming out of Soldier Field. The matches are 25 minutes long, and Arai Durson, who is the head of IT for Men in Red and a friend of the pod, is on Hot Takes, was the line judge for the match. The match ended in 2-2, a 2-2 draw. it was like the quality of play is good. Like they're legitimately fun to watch. And again, being 25 minutes, a lot of first team players stuck around to watch the match, sort of like from the sidelines or from like near the tunnel. And afterwards, Frank Klopas came out and congratulated the players. So it was a good time.
Good on them. I mean, if I didn't have to work early the next morning, I would have stayed, and also because of the rain. Like I was already just feeling moist, as I mentioned.
You've got an excused absence. You've got an excused absence, Alan. We understand.
I mean, still, I really wish next time I could stay. I need to figure out a few logistics things with me because I was because one thing I started doing now this season is bringing my saxophone to the stadium, and because I don't drive, I take the bus and the train. What I end up doing is I just take my saxophone, like I just unpack it from its case and I just carry it around. I just carry it around with me. And I remember I was talking with Daniel Flores, also known as Trumpet Papi. You've definitely seen him at the games. He is probably the most visible of the instrumentalists in the supporter section. He's like, I don't know how you just raw dog carry that thing everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I need to figure out a better case for this. Because the one that I have right now is like, it's big, it's clunky, and it's a bit heavy. So like, and I definitely don't think they would let me through security with it. So I need to get like a more compact carrying case. So yeah, logistics still need to be figured out, but we're heading in a direction. Like we're very much figuring out what needs to be done and what needs to be moved forward. Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing I will go ahead and say, thank you for following the MIR97 Pods account over on Twitter, because that's where we usually post any updates about the podcasts or anything. We also do little giveaways, whether it's tickets or items. So, be sure to follow that if you want free stuff, because free stuff is fun. Who doesn't want free stuff, honestly?
Depends. What's the cost?
That
the cost for the free thing here is you have to see my memes.
That is true. You do, but the memes that you do post are actually relevant and also funny. So yeah, I sometimes thought about just posting incredibly irrelevant and stupid stuff, but nah, not for now.
Cool.
Yeah. It feels kind of weird because we're not doing a preview, considering there's no game this week. So, hopefully everyone has fun, does something cool over the weekend. Hopefully the weather's going to be a lot better. Looking at the forecast, it's going to be sort of what it has been for the past few days, sort of between like in the 50s and 60s. So
if people were looking for something to do, I guess that Friday, June 7th, the Fire 2 are playing Chattanooga FC,
yes.
Who are two of the teams near the top of the table. So, if you're looking for something to do and can make it to SeatGeek by 6 p.m. on Friday, which is basically impossible if you work a 9-to-5 job, unless you work a 9-to-5 job in Bridgeview, go to see that. If not,
Or there is also the historic match going over in Wrigley Field. The Red Stars are taking on, oh my days, why am I blanking on the team?
Boston Breakers? Bay FC. I don't know.
Bay FC. I was like...
Boston Breakers, my goodness.
Boston Breakers. Yeah, Bay FC. I think it's like the first time in a long time. I can't remember the specific length since a women's team has played in Wrigley, but it's
the last time was a League of Their Own era women's baseball game.
Oh wow.
So
that's happening on Saturday. That game's at 6:30. I think there are still tickets left, but from what I'm hearing, they're going out fast. So
there are, and the team is on a mission to sell out Wrigley, which would make it the highest attended women's club match in history.
Yeah. Why not go for it? Honestly, I've been to now 2 Red Stars game this season, and they've been both really fun. So if you haven't been to a Red Stars game, this is, the perfect opportunity, especially if you're someone that's in the city. It's right off the Addison Red Line, Wrigley. We all know where Wrigleyville is, that, and where Wrigley Field is, that little stadium in the middle of a beer garden, as I like to say.
Yeah, it should be a fun match. So hopefully see you there. If not, we will be back before the next Fire game to talk about that and any other updates that happen.
True. And maybe some other little tidbits to talk about there as well, since it is technically the halfway point of the season, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Yuppers. Yippee skippy. All right. Ladies and germs and they, them of the Fire. It's been great. Fire have won. Just need to keep on striding. Just keep going forward. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Swimming. What do? We swim.
I think we broke Alan. All right, I think we just have to end this episode, guys.
I think it got broken. I think it was broken a while ago, to be honest.
I've been broken for so while. I'm like when I said at the beginning of the episode, when I said at the beginning of the episode, I need to graduate. I mean it. I need to get out.
For reference, before
that's actually
this,
a really good movie.
Before we started recording,
okay, well,
he was singing
we're gonna go in
in
the episode every
5 seconds.
Yes, I would. Before we started recording, I just kept going HOTTOGO. You can take me hard to go. Everyone listening to this podcast is witnessing my downfall right now. So, before it gets even worse, I, as always, have been Alan the Pole with the goal, joined by DJ and Tim, who's in the corner crying because of what is going on right now. And as always, come on, you men in red.